guys, and welcome back to my channel. So we are going to be jumping back into Decoding the Antichrist and the End Times by Pastor Mark Biltz. So we were just in the middle of the biblical requirements for King Messiah. So I'll read you the ones that were in the previous video. There were 3 of them. The first one was Messiah will be a military leader. Number 2, Messiah gathers the outcasts of Israel and Judah back to their land. 3, Messiah will bring redemption to the Israelites and restore their fortunes, and they will all be righteous. And then now we are on to where we left off. So number 4, Messiah will reestablish the feasts of the Lord. It shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the feast of tabernacles. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. And that's Zechariah 14, 16, and 17. We are definitely talking a whole new world here. Can you imagine every nation having to send representatives to Jerusalem to keep the Feast of Tabernacles in order for their countries not to experience drought and plague? There will be human survivors after Armageddon who will have to come every year to the temple in Jerusalem that Messiah builds. So the Jewish people are expecting a Messiah who will be a great military leader, conquering the entire world and bringing it under the submission of a Jewish Messiah who teaches God's Torah to the nations. Number 5, the Torah will be magnified, have its honor restored, and be taught to all nations as Jerusalem becomes the capital of the world. So this is going to be a verse out of Micah. It'll be chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. But in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountain of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountains, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow in unto it. And many nations shall come and say, Come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For the law shall go forth to Zion, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. Wow. People from all nations will come to Jerusalem as not only the capital of Israel, but the capital of the whole world, and the Torah will be magnified and taught to all nations. This next verse is from Isaiah 42, 18 through 24. Hear ye deaf, and look ye blind, that ye may see. Who is blind but my servant, or deaf as my messenger that I sent? Who is blind as he that is perfect, and blind as the Lord's servant? Seeing many things, but thou observest not, opening the ears, but the heart not. The Lord is well pleased for his righteousness' sake. He will magnify the law and make it honorable. But this is a people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes, and they are hid in prison houses. They are for prey, and none delivereth, for a spoil, and none saith, Restore. Who among you will give ear to this? Who will hearken and hear for the time to come? Who gave Jacob for a spoil, and Israel to the robbers? Did not the Lord? He against whom we have sinned. For they would not walk in his ways, neither were they obedient unto his law. The ones God refers to as being spiritually blind and deaf are not the heathen, but his own people who refuse to hear and obey the law. When it says, Who will hearken and hear for the time to come, let the phrase time to come refer to the last generation. The law, or the Torah, is to be magnified and made honorable, yet we find the ones who are robbed and plundered are those who do not walk in God's ways. Psalm 138:2 states that God is exalted, his word even above his name. If he goes against his own word, it would definitely dishonor his name. Number 6, Messiah himself builds the temple and is both a priest and a king in Jerusalem. This comes from Zechariah 6:12 and 13. Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying, Behold the man whose name is the branch, and he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord, even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both. We are seeing a Messiah who will be both priest and king. Look at these verses in the book of Ezekiel. So this is Ezekiel 43:4 and 7. The glory of the Lord came into the house by the way of the gate whose prospect is toward the east. So the Spirit took me up and brought me into the inner court, and behold, the glory of the Lord filled the house. I heard him speaking unto me out of the house, and the man stood by me. And he said unto me, Son of man, the place of my throne and the place of the soles of my feet, where I will dwell in the midst of the children of Israel forever. And my holy name shall the house of Israel no more defile, neither they nor their kings by their whoredom, nor by the carcasses of their kings in their high places. And then number 7, there will be a supernatural peace in the land of Israel. According to Isaiah 11:6 and 9, there will be nothing but peace in Jerusalem. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. For the whole earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. And in Zephaniah we find the following. The remnant of Israel shall not do iniquity, nor speak lies, neither shall a deceitful tongue be found in their mouth. For they shall feed and lie down, and none shall make them afraid. Number 8. And that verse was Zephaniah 3:13. Number 8, strangers or non-Jews will also be welcome to live in the land of Israel and enjoy the temple. Hold on, I need a drink. This is Ezekiel 47:21 through 23. So shall ye divide this land unto you according to the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that ye shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you, and to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you. And they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourneth, there shall ye give him his inheritance, saith the Lord. Ezekiel 48 mentions the gates of the city of Jerusalem being named after the tribes of Israel. There will not be any non-Jewish gates. The Jewish people very strongly believe in the new covenant. We read about it in Jeremiah 31:31, which says, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah. Did you see that? The new covenant is not with Gentiles. Gentiles are grafted into the covenant God made with the Jewish people. So just what kind of covenant is this new covenant? It says in verse 33 that this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my law in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their God, and they shall be my people. Oh my, the Torah will not be done away with, but will be written on the heart instead of being written on stone. Some might think that because the Israelites have rejected Yeshua, God has forsaken them. But look at what the scriptures say concerning Israel in regard to the new covenant. If these ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, Then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever. Thus saith the Lord, if heaven above can be measured, and the foundations of the earth searched out beneath, I will also cast off all the seed of Israel for all that they have done, saith the Lord. And that's Jeremiah 31:36-37. Not only that, some may argue that the land covenant made to Abraham 4,000 years ago has expired and the land now belongs to the Palestinians. If a generation is 60 years, then from the creation of Adam until now, it has only been 100 generations, or 6,000 years. In the book of Psalms, God confirms the land covenant he made with Abraham for 1,000 generations. That's 60,000 years, or all the time of human existence up to now times 10. So this verse says, and this is from Psalm 105:8-11, He hath remembered his covenant forever, the word which he commanded to 1,000 generations, which covenant he made with Abraham, and his oath unto Isaac, and confirmed the same to Jacob for a law, and to Israel for an everlasting covenant, saying, Unto thee I give the land of Canaan, the lot of your inheritance. So the Jewish Messiah will come and confirm the land covenant. After all, it is his own inheritance, and he will not divide it or give any of it away. Now, this next one is very controversial. What else will the Jewish Messiah accomplish? Number 9. The Messiah restarts the priesthood and the sacrificial system. Thus saith the Lord God, in the first month, in the first day of the month, thou shalt take a young bullock without blemish, and cleanse the sanctuary. And the priest shall take of the blood of the sin offering, and put it upon the posts of the house, and upon the four corners of the settle of the altar, and upon the posts of the gate of the outer inner court. Gate of the inner court. And so thou shalt do the 7th day of the month for every one that erreth. And for him that is simple, so shall ye reconcile the house. In the first month, in the 14th day of the month, ye shall have the Passover, a feast of 7 days. Unleavened bread shall be eaten. And that's Ezekiel 45:18-21. The last several chapters of Ezekiel speak of the Messianic era, when the Messiah builds the temple and the sacrifices are reinstituted. Ezekiel's temple has not been built yet. Here is an unbelievable verse. This is Ezekiel 44:9-11. Thus saith the Lord God, no stranger, uncircumcised in heart, nor uncircumcised in flesh, shall enter into my sanctuary of any stranger that is among the children of Israel. And the Levites that are gone away far from me, when Israel went astray, which went astray away from me after their idols, they shall even bear their iniquity. Yet they shall be ministers in my sanctuary, having charge at the gates of the house, and ministering to the house. They shall slay the burnt offering and the sacrifice for the people, and they shall stand before them to minister unto them. We know for a fact that only God himself can determine if someone's heart is uncircumcised. Many believers recoil at the thought of the sacrificial system being reinstituted, but that's because they never really understood the sacrificial system. I'm one that's cringing, so if you're cringing, I'm right there with you. So I think I'm going to have to talk to my mom a little bit about this one because, I don't know, we'll see. So this says, I realize there is much controversy about the sacrificial system after the cross and the future millennial temple, but I also believe in sticking to the plain meaning of the text rather than allegorizing everything away that does not fit our theology. If that were the case, then the wages of sin would no longer be death, but just unhappy feelings, and the 10 Commandments would become 10 suggestions. Even when we can derive other symbolism or meanings from the scriptures, we are still to never do away with the plain meaning of the text. We also need to realize that classifying all Jewish tradition as non-biblical is anti-Semitic. There are a lot of Christian traditions that are non-biblical as well. There is a lot of tradition on both sides that has nothing wrong with it. It's just tradition. So we need to set aside our prejudices and simply read the Bible for what it says. The daily sacrifices were never for intentional sin. The Jews never believed the daily sacrifices atoned for intentional sin either. Yes, there were sacrifices for sin, but they were for sins of ignorance and not intentional sins. The only way the Jewish people ever felt they could find forgiveness for intentional sin was through confession for their sin, repentance, and making restitution as required in the Torah. The sacrifices were one way for them to draw near to God and sit at his table and have a meal together. A look at the sacrifices. The main sacrificial offerings consisted of the olah, or burnt offering. Here, the entire offering was consumed, and none of it was eaten by anyone. The term means to ascend, and the idea was that the person who offered it would ascend to God through the sacrifice. It had nothing to do with sin and was never mandatory. This is the idea of Romans 12, which tells us we are to offer up our entire lives to God. Then there was the peace offering, expressing thanksgiving to God for his involvement in your life. This sacrifice was consumed on the altar. A portion was given to the priest, and the one who offered it, along with his family, ate the rest. Passover was considered a peace offering, and it was not considered a sin offering either. The Talmud states that when the Messiah comes, this will be the only type of offering that will be brought to the temple. The next class of offering was the shatat, or sin offering. The word shatat refers to unintentional sins or sins of ignorance through carelessness rather than willful, intentional, malicious sins. There were shatat offerings for the individual as well for the nation. Forgiveness in the Torah was always achieved by repentance, confession of sin, restitution, and asking for God's grace and mercy. Willful sins were dealt with on Yom Kippur. Then there was the asham, or guilt offering. An asham offering was brought when you were not sure if you committed a sin. When you were sure later, then you would bring the shatat offering. In the asham offering, a penalty was exacted based upon what occurred. There was also the minchak offering, or food and drink offering. This was a meal offering representing the fruit of one's labor. A portion of it was offered to God. In Jewish thought, not every type of sacrifice will be done in the Messianic kingdom. So this now brings us to the question of why in the world Jews don't believe in Jesus as their Messiah. According to Judaism, Jesus never fulfilled the biblical criteria. According to the Jewish perspective on biblical prophecy, Jesus failed to fulfill many of the main messianic criteria. Military. He didn't do what they expected. He never overthrew the Roman Empire. The Jews definitely were not regathered, but scattered even more all over the world, even to this day. After 2,000 years, they still are only partially regathered. The temple was destroyed and has never been rebuilt, even to this day. There is no sacrificial system. Israel is not the capital of the world. As a matter of fact, the nations won't even allow Jerusalem to be the capital of Israel. Most nations won't move their embassies to Jerusalem, let alone have all their governments flowing to it. The nations are even trying to divide Jerusalem into two separate capitals. Is there peace in Israel, with the wolf and the lamb lying down together? The Torah is despised by all nations and disregarded by the church as null and void, as they declare that Jesus changed it. To top it off, Jesus isn't even Jewish anymore, but a Christian. How is any of this supposed to be good news to the Jews? And people ask me, why do Jews have such a difficult time believing in or recognizing Jesus as their Messiah? This next section is called the Jewish Anti-Messiah. We have to realize that the Hebrew word for the Messiah is Mashiach, which means anointed or the anointed one. Therefore, the anti-Messiah is someone who is against the anointed one. Within certain sects of Judaism, the Antichrist is known as Armilus. 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 There are various legends concerning who this might be. It is basically taught that he is the successor to Gog in the book of Ezekiel, or the head of Rome, referring to Edom and Christianity. In other words, for them, the anti-Messiah would possibly be the Pope or the leader of the nation coming against Israel in the last days. He wages a battle against the Jewish people, killing Messiah ben Joseph and Messiah ben David. Their concept of an Antichrist is one who breaks God's law as given directly to Moses. They believe both Messiah ben Joseph and Messiah ben David are completely human. And then this next section is the Jewish concept of the two witnesses. Within Judaism, it is thought that Elijah and possibly another prophet will precede the Messiah's coming and announce his arrival with the blowing of a shofar. Every year at the Passover Seder, a cup is left out for Elijah, who they believe will come at Passover and announce that the Messianic kingdom is arriving. We read in Malachi 4:5 that God will send Elijah the prophet before the great and terrible day of the Lord comes. In the verses just before this, Malachi prophesies that on the day it will burn like a furnace, and all the proud and the wicked will be stubble as the fire of the Lord burns them up. But those who fear his name will find healing in his wings, and they will tread down the wicked, who will be ashes under their feet. He then urges everyone to remember the Torah, law of Moses that God commanded him at Mount Sinai, including all the statutes and ordinances. There has to be a reason for this. In Deuteronomy 18:15-22, we read of another prophet coming when Moses tells the nation of Israel that God is going to raise up unto thee a prophet like unto me, and that he would be one of them, and they would listen to him. This other prophet would be just like Moses, doing all kinds of signs and wonders, as we see in chapter 34. So in Deuteronomy 34:10 and 11, it says, "There arose not a prophet since in Israel like unto Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, in all the signs and the wonders which the Lord sent to him to do in the land of Egypt to Pharaoh." Chapter 18 also gives warnings about false prophets claiming to be speaking in God's name. I can't help but be reminded of Yeshua's words in John chapter 8, that he only spoke what the Father told him, and he came accompanied by all kinds of signs and wonders. Even though Christians believe the prophecy in Deuteronomy applies to Yeshua, as far as the Jews are concerned, a prophet like Moses is still to come. I can't help but think of the false prophet mentioned in Revelation 13 and 16, who will come speaking lies accompanied with all kinds of signs and lying wonders as well. And that's what worries me the most, is when it's time for all of this, if I'm even alive, to not fall into it, to not be swept up in it all, to not be confused. So that's a fear of mine. The big test that is coming for believers is how we will know the true prophet from the false prophet. They both claim to speak for God, and they both perform signs and wonders. Let's say Moses and Elijah are the two witnesses. Then we have the Antichrist and the false prophet coming on the scene at the same time doing battle. They both are speaking in God's name and doing signs and wonders. Who are we to believe? In Matthew 24:4 and 5 and 11, we read about false prophets and false messiahs showing great signs and wonders, deceiving people. Matthew 7:21-23 even talks of people calling Jesus Lord and claiming they prophesied, cast out demons, and did wonderful works in his name. Yet he will tell them they were workers of iniquity. In 2 Thessalonians 2:7, the Apostle Paul writes of this mystery of iniquity or mystery of lawlessness. In verse 8, he goes on to say that the wicked would be revealed. The Greek word for wicked is anamos, meaning lawless. It is not referring to being lawless concerning the laws of Las Vegas or the United Nations. It means the Antichrist is one not wanting to follow God's laws. If we take another look at Deuteronomy 18, we see that Israel is warned not to fall for false prophets who will presumptuously claim to speak in God's name or speak in the name of another god. The prophet who does this shall surely die. In verses 21 through 22, Israel is told how to tell if a prophet is false, whether what he says comes to pass. But this is not how you identify a true prophet. This is only how you identify a false prophet. So that is where I will leave you. The next section is called A True Prophet as Defined by the Torah. So that is part 5, maybe, of this book. I hope that you're enjoying it. Leave any questions, comments down below. I love reading your guys' comments. I hope that you're enjoying this book reading. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that I get to share this with you guys. Thanks again, Aunt Lisa, for this book, and Pastor Mark as well for writing it. And I'm just excited to share and learn and do this with you guys. So thanks for being here. We'll see you in the next video, and God bless.